So we are looking at chapter 6. So this is going to be our fifth PowerPoint here. Chapter 6 all by itself, we are talking about nutrition strategies for weight loss. And so this is another one that this is actually really similar to a lesson that we had in our nutrition class last course, where we were talking about it's like the tips and tricks PowerPoint. Like this chapter is much less about like, here's what a vitamin is and how it interacts inside of your body, and much more about like, here's how you can make like some easy dietary changes that like are likely to keep your client on the diet. Because here's the thing, like we teach you guys, and honestly the reason we do it is because it's it's similar to how we teach history. I know I say this all the time, but it's like really similar to how like we teach history sometimes in school. I thought I hated history class. Like I thought that like history is a subject that I hated growing up and stuff. And when I got older, I found out I really liked history, but like I just hate the way we teach history, because a lot of times like the way school is structured is it is structured around the ability to score students, right? Like, and it's very easy to give you a question if that question, like dates of battles make great questions because it's just an easy thing to throw in a multiple choice answer, And so like we teach a lot of like dates of battles, which is super uninteresting to somebody like me. Like I could not give a crap when something happened. But then if you start to break down like why it happened, I'm super fascinated by it, right? That's almost how we teach nutrition a lot of times in the PFT program. Unfortunately, I think that's how a lot of the questions are geared on your test. It's a lot of like, where do you find vitamin A? What does vitamin E do inside of the body? What makes fat soluble vitamins different from water soluble vitamins? So you get like questions like that, but like a lot of that info doesn't necessarily help your clients, right? It's not very like tangible stuff that's like, telling your client, well, it's like your client comes to you and they're like, hey, I'm really struggling sticking to this diet. What can I do to make my life easier and keep at it? That's the kind of info you want to have to be able to pull out and tell them, right? And that's kind of what this PowerPoint feels a little bit more like. Like you're definitely going to hear me say, 45 to 65% carbs again. You're going to hear me say there's 4 calories in a gram of protein. We're going to go through all that again. But really what we're talking about here is strategies for how to keep at a diet, right? Make sure that you're staying hydrated. Make sure that your portion sizes are not out of control. Log your food. Take time to appreciate that you're consuming that food. All those like little mental things that make it easier for you to adhere to a diet, because like, it's just like, it's like me, like I'm not that terrific with my money. Don't get me wrong, I'm better with my parents. Good Lord. But like, I'm not like naturally good at it. And so I have to have like strategies in play for me to be better with my money, And so like those like little tips and things, like when I get a paycheck, like instantly logging it away and treating like some of it as something that didn't happen, like 10% of my check instantly going away. And it's like, okay, I just make 10% less than I see on that check. That's like a mental trick that works really, really well for me, and then on the other side, like I've got some of that going directly towards like my retirement. So it's like little things that make it easy for me, even just applying for, having like my bank account round up the pennies and stuff. And that goes into a very small account. And that's what I use. And like, that's the only account that I use for like certain recreational activities. And it's like, oh man, like I'm going to go to the movies. And it's like, do I have enough money in my go to the movies account? That keeps me on track, and like, it'd be very easy for someone to just say, oh, well, just, it'd be better with your money and like naturally invest and do this and do that. And it's like, here's what you should be doing. It's like, yeah, I know all the things I should be doing, but it's not easy for me to stick to those things. Like I know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how to do what I'm supposed to do. Right. That is kind of how nutrition is for a lot of our clients. Like we know that like sugar's bad for us, but most people don't know how to cut it out of their diet. Right. We know that an excess of calories causes like excessive weight gain, but we don't know how to avoid those calories. Yeah, what's up?
I'm getting to know the system. But you, on that note, with your money management, Brad, $80 a week on your food, man, I give you big kudos for that.
Yeah, and that's a meal prep strategy thing, right?
Yeah, grocery
Absolutely. That's
shopping. How does Brad do this on $80 a week? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was
that's,
actually, God, it was so close to exactly 80. Like I always say that, but like this week it was like $80.40 on the dot. I was like,
oh no.
whoa. It's always like a little game for me to try to get under 80. And like a lot of it is because like I buy certain things in bulk, like I'll buy like a lot of brown rice, and that's, several weeks of food and stuff. And then I buy like, raw chicken, and this week like I was doing I do frozen salmon because it saves like $2 a pound, Um, I do like the man. If you guys get a chance, the coho frozen salmon from Trader Joe's thaws out really well. You can just cook it straight frozen, and it still comes out like super tender and stuff. The reason I'm able to save so much money is, number one, I invested in meal prep containers. So I dropped a ton of money to get really good meal prep containers, and that makes it super easy for me to portion out my food. And
And
number
they're glass
two,
too, right?
what's that?
You got the glass ones too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I did that, and people are always like, "Oh, being all health conscious, make sure you don't get any plastics." I actually didn't do it because of the plastics, although like I should have. Don't get me wrong. Like microwaving plastic is not good for you. It leaks BPA's into your food, and those are things that eventually can get into your blood, and then they're act as free radicals, and they're very bad for you. But the main reason I did it is because of how lazy I am. I hate I hate putting things in like when I put the plastic ones in the dishwasher, they used to get like push the water pressure would just bounce them around, and so then they wouldn't get washed. And I'd have to like wipe them all out. So like I got the glass ones because they're heavier. That's the main reason.
It's like
um,
stone.
yeah. But anyway, so that helps me save money. And then I invested in a couple cooking tools that were kind of expensive that help. So like cooking things from frozen, for instance, you tend to mess it up. You tend to overcook things a lot of times. But I dropped like $40 on a digital food thermometer, which is super worth it. If you ever get a chance, guys, they're great. And it's this probe that you stick into your food, and then you just tell it what type of meat you're cooking. In my case, like it was like fish, and so like that you want to safely, you want to cook fish to an internal temperature of, I think it's 145 degrees, not 100% sure. So then you just stick that whole thing in the oven, and then you stick your little, and it's got this long wire that you just kind of thread outside and close the oven on the wire, and it's fine. And then you just set the little reader up top, and it'll just cook. And it's like, how many minutes do I cook salmon for? I don't know. What temperature? I don't know. I pick a different one every time. Like eventually what happens is the food thermometer says, hey, it's done now. And then you pull it out and it's perfect. So that is why like I'm able to buy like raw ingredients, which are much cheaper because they're inconvenient to cook. But they're not inconvenient to cook if you have the right tools. So it saves you a lot of money.
It's a good investment. And
It
you said
totally
it's
is.
right.
What's that?
Is it blue? You can connect it to your phone. That's how you know when the temperature hits.
There are ones that you can. Man, Amazon sells this like food thermometer kit, which is like 7 or 8 food thermometers, and you can stick them all in different foods, and then it all goes to like a Bluetooth like app. Oh, I'd love to get that one. But like at the same time, I don't know if I'd use all 7.
Yeah. But yours
uh,
isn't to your phone, Brad? It's
what's that?
just the one.
Mine is just, it goes out to a little reader. It's a little thing that I just
Oh,
put on top
okay.
of my stove. Yeah.
That's so cool. It's so much more efficient that way. You're
Yeah,
not.
it's really great. I'd say that's my favorite tool in the kitchen, actually, is my food thermometer. Because I'm notorious for overcooking stuff. It gets super dry. But that saves you a ton of money. I actually, this is a great conversation to have on today's lesson. Like these little meal prep like ideas these are super helpful. I should I'll tell you what, at the end of the lesson, remind me. I will run downstairs real quick and grab my meal prep for the week and show you guys like what it looks like. And you can kind of see like what $80 a week can get you, All right, so we want to be able to understand food intake modifications for weight management purposes, guidelines for healthy weight loss. So this is going to be also where we talk about our caloric reduction today, which is going to be really cool, actually. And I'm going to show you, we'll get a little mathy, but I'm going to show you a couple little examples of like healthy caloric reductions. And then I want to remember to also talk about something that's just outside of NASM's recommendations that I have done a lot of reading on that I find to be really effective. And then communicate any nutritional recommendation to our clients, right? That's a big part of what we do. So communicating like evidence-based nutrition recommendations to our clients is a huge part of our job and one of the most intimidating, right? Like we know a lot of people are there's so much information about food. Like food is so much more complicated. Like it's pretty easy just to say like, hey, you should get active. Like we know, like I can just very easily and confidently convey the information. You should move more. And that right there is enough that I know that I'm confident that I'm right. I'm confident it was a good recommendation, but like you should consume this in your diet. And it's like, well, what if there's this going on? Or what if like this is happening or that or this or that? And it's like, you're right. Like all of those are like factors. Like nutrition is very, very complicated, you know, like as a flat statement, like steamed broccoli, is it good for you? That's a really flawed question. You know, steamed broccoli is a food that is low in energy, high in nutrients, like vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and can be an excellent way to get those vitamins and minerals and micronutrients into your diet. But if it has like certain phytochemicals that interact really poorly, it has high levels of like uric acid, for instance, which if you suffer from a disease like gout, suddenly it's one of the worst things you can eat, and it's incredibly dangerous. So, you know, it's complicated. Nutrition's a very complicated talk. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm seeing a random stranger letting their dog go to the bathroom on my yard. I've officially become like an old man who lives in a house. Get off my lawn. All right, she's picking it up. Okay. That's the first time it's ever happened. My voice just got like a couple decibels deeper, or not decibels, a couple frequencies deeper. My bones ache. All right. So what do we know? Like when we're giving like nutrition advice, right? We want to ask ourselves, and this is a much better way to go about like discussing nutrition rather than breaking things into what's good and what's bad, which is oftentimes how we have a lot of conversations about health, right? 9 out of 10 conversations are like, is this good? Right? That's a question you'll often get asked. And a lot of people will just want to be simple about it and say, yeah, that's good for you, you know? But that's not a great approach. I mean, honestly, it's not a great approach in general. But in nutrition, it's definitely something we want to consider. So instead of just breaking things into what's good and bad, we want to understand like what does the evidence show, right? There's evidence to suggest that this is good, right? Like so let's look at the keto diet, for instance. This is a great example. Ketogenic diet is all the craze right now. You know, when I started at Sochi, I used to use the paleo as the example all the time, but now keto is so much more popular that's the one we'll talk about. And I'm not anti-keto or anything like that. I'm not anti-paleo. I'm not anti most diets theoretically, because a lot of them can still be really, really healthy. But like, let's look at that. Like, you know, we have a ton of people out there in the world who have talked about how much success they've had on keto, right? There's just so many stories of this and that and all the other, all about how keto is so effective. And it's like, all those stories are great. Like, and I'm really glad that like people had success on those diets. But like when we're looking at the evidence, and it's like, yeah, well, switching your body over to like when you become like fat adapted and your body is burning fat as a primary form of fuel, that's better for you when it comes to weight loss. And like your brain works better and this and that. And it's like, All right, well, let's analyze like what a ketogenic diet looks like, right? Like this is a diet that's particularly about 70% fat intake, 30 grams or less of carbohydrates per day, and moderate protein. Like a lot, and a lot of people think that it's like a super high protein diet, but that's not necessarily true. Like animal sources that are high in fat often come along with like a lot of protein, and so most people on a keto, I shouldn't say most, but like a lot of people on ketogenic diets will consume high levels of protein, but the diet is not a high protein diet. It is a high fat diet, not high protein. So, you see people who are like on this, and it's like, well, that doesn't sound healthy. And so it's like, well, I mean, we live in a world where fat has been demonized for a long time, and there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that fat is bad for you. But excessive levels of saturated fat can be very dangerous. That is associated with like heart disease and increased cholesterol and things like that. So, now we've got like an argument on both sides, right? We got like, is the keto diet bad for you? Well, not necessarily. Fat has been shown, fat's not bad for you. Saturated fat has been linked to heart disease. That's not saying that fat is bad for you, right? Unsaturated fats are still very, very, very healthy. And then you have the total flip side of it, which is like keto is great for you because you become a fat burning machine where your body can rely on adipose tissue more effectively as like a fuel source. And when you look at that, is that true? On a cellular level, yes. Like your body has to start burning ketones in response to a lack of carbohydrates, right? Your body has to convert ketones into acetyl-CoA in order for you to be able to perform ATP production. Now, is that good? I mean, it's something that your body can do. So clearly it was designed to be able to do it, right? But a lot of times, like you end up with these other byproducts that if you are not managing like those byproducts tend to make your body very, very acidic. And so one of the problems that's associated with ketogenic diets is hyperacidosis, which is basically where your pH in general throughout your whole body starts to raise. And that high acidity means that your cells can't function the way that you're supposed to. You can also get hyperalkalosis, which is exactly the opposite, where your body also can't really function. Like our body functions, our cells work at a very narrow range of temperatures. That's why fevers, suck. And if you lose too much body temperature, that's also very bad for you. We also function at a pretty narrow range of pH. So you can be in a dangerous scenario with both. But we tend to live in a world full of acidic stuff. We have a lot of soda and coffees and things like that, and those are all very acidic foods. Whereas base foods or alkaline foods tend to be things like dark leafy greens, vegetables, which most people don't get enough of in their diet. And so is it bad to be acidic, or is it better to be alkaline? That's better it's what we want to be is neutral, right? We just happen to live in a world full of all the acidic stuff. And so now, like going back to like keto, it's like, is it okay? Sure, sure could be, as long as you're getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, vegetables in particular in your diet to kind of balance out those pH changes. It could be fine as long as you're getting plenty of fiber in your diet. That could also be okay. Like that fiber is really important for like pulling things out of your body, right? But on most ketogenic diets, they tend to be very low in carbohydrates. And broccoli and spinach and things like that, those have carbohydrates in them. Fruits have massive amounts of carbohydrates in them. Obviously not as much as like refined foods like pasta, but there's still like a high amount. So now you are cutting out an entire section of where you can get fiber and certain vitamins and certain minerals out of your diet. And it isn't the healthiest thing in the world. So this is definitely like how we kind of want to reframe things. It's less about like breaking foods into lists of good and bad and looking at like, what does the evidence show, right? Like, we know that there are definitely people who have lost a ton of weight on the ketogenic diet, but at the same time, we've had plenty of people have success on just normal diet and exercise. So, which is better? I don't think it works that way. I think that's a flawed question. So a few things that evidence shows, right? A few things that we do know. Gradual weight loss is much more likely to be maintained than rapid weight loss. We have seen this time and time again, but people who tend to lose weight slowly over time succeed much more often than people who tend to lose like a rapid, super massive amount, and often they gain that back. And that's associated with a couple different things. A lot of people are like, oh, see, you shot your metabolism. I don't think it's necessarily accurate to say that like you slowed the metabolic rate of your cells down, but I do think that when you lose massive amounts of weight, a lot of times your body will dump muscle in response to that, because that's a type of tissue that burns a lot of energy. And so in response to a lack of energy, your body's like, wow, well, I'm gonna fire from the top. I'm gonna get rid of the energy burning stuff first, which tends to be your muscle. And now your metabolic rate, because you have less metabolic tissue, is going to go down, which means if you return to old habits, it's going to be much easier for you to gain fat back, and you don't have as much muscle burning passive energy. So now losing weight a second time is going to be harder, right? And maybe you'll make new fat cells as well, which is what we refer to as like hyperplastic obesity, where you have an excessive number of fat cells in response to just like continually making new ones. Ideally, if your body was doing what it was supposed to, it would be refilling your existing fat cells, but that's just not necessarily how it always happens. So we know that gradual weight loss is definitely going to be more effective. The National Institute of Health Obesity Education Initiative details a reasonable timeline for weight loss is about 10% in body weight reduction over a 6-month period. So I'm going to put that up here actually. I don't know how to label this right off the top. This normally I get like a definition at the top, and it's a great way to kind of frame everything. And I'm trying to figure out how to just set this up. So evidence-based tips for successful weight loss. That'll work. So we do know that gradual weight loss programs have been shown to be much more effective than rapid loss programs, right? Programs focusing on extreme fast results often are hard to adhere to and often lead to falling back into old habits. So I'm going to use an example. And by the way, I want to make it clear, like I'm not a huge fan of The Biggest Loser, despite my history with them. And that's not because of my history with them either. It's just because of, regular opinions. Even when I like applied for my job, I was like, they were like, you fan of the show? And I was like, I'm not very good at lying. No. But that being said, I want to kind of address. There did come out a study a couple years back where people were complaining. They were previous contestants who gained a lot of weight back, and they were complaining that like the show ruined their metabolism, and they did all these different things that like while they were on the show like set them up for failure. And so like they had success in the short term and then ended up like gaining a lot of that back. I think that like I'm not saying that any of that is untrue. I believe that did happen to those people, but I think that it is much less from a place of like them slowing their body's genetic metabolism down, and much more likely from a place of like that show was focused on creating a major calorie expenditure and a severe calorie deficit. And it was not focused on doing the work of like, we need to talk about like how your habits affect your eating. And we need to make sure we set our lifestyle up for success, And you could, you could have somebody who knows everything there is to know about nutrition, but if they don't understand how your brain works in response to that nutrition and what makes like a healthy lifestyle, you're never going to get there, right? Or at least you may get there and you're going to fall back. So this is where we generally want to focus on slow, steady weight loss programs, and we also want to focus on behavior change strategies, target behaviors that result in success. It's a numbers game. It really is. Like, are you allowed to have ice cream on like a diet? Absolutely, but not often. It's like you can have like a cheat meal. In fact, cheat meals have been shown to be very, very effective at keeping people on diet programs. And so they find that people who are cheating succeed in a long-term cycle more than people who are super strict in the short term, which is crazy to think about. But that is just how we work. We are, we only have like we have an inexhaustible amount of willpower. And I'm gonna show you a fun little video that's gonna talk about that here in just a minute. All right, so gradual weight loss. So the NIHOE, that's not right. I think it's just NIH.
Brad,
yes.
Exhaustible. What you just said? You mean that it's like we have unlimited willpower? Is that what you're saying?
We do not have unlimited willpower. We have very limited willpower.
Limited.
Yeah.
Wait, isn't it unlimited if depending on how you apply yourself?
Well, see, that's the thing. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to address this actually in like 2 slides.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll show you exactly what I mean. When they have studied, they have been curious about like how much willpower people have, and they find that it is a pretty exhaustible resource. It's just like it's similar to like how much energy you have during a workout. Look at somebody like we were just talking about David Goggins, but like that dude seems to have an unlimited capacity for exercise. But we know that like your muscles get exhausted, so does your brain. So a 10% reduction in body weight over a 6-month period is what's recommended. That is going to be about a 300 to 500 calorie reduction per day. So one of the other really good ways to look at this that works pretty well is understanding like what BMI range you fall into, because you'll see people who will lose, 2 pounds in a week, 3 pounds in a week in some certain circumstances, right? You look at like how much like fat people are losing. Well, remember, the further you are away from your goal, the easier it is to create like a caloric deficit while still supplying your body with like nutrition, right? So in clients who have a BMI between 27 and 35, a 300 to 500 calorie reduction is 10% weight loss. If your BMI is above 35, a 500 to 1,000 calorie reduction is still only 10% of your total body weight in weight loss. So you are losing the same percentage of your weight. And really, we find that that's what's actually important. That's what's important for, keeping your body going, all right, like I'm willing to tap into the fat stores because we're not doing this too rapidly, So we want to tap into those tissues. When you look at companies, certain companies, like this is definitely not a rule, but you get 2 places. Like, let's say your company starts like losing money, right? You're the CEO of a company, and your company starts losing money, and you're going to analyze everything, right? You're going to analyze like how you can kind of balance your budget. And maybe some of that involves like cutting your payroll down. Let's make some employee cuts. If you're losing money slowly, you can be like, all right, well, maybe we just have too many low-level, factory workers. And so you can cut just a little bit of fat out of your company by making everybody on the production line work a little bit harder by, cutting out a few employees. I'm not saying this is a good thing, by the way. I'm just saying, like, if we are cold-hearted, looking at numbers only, that's something that kind of makes sense. But if you were losing rapid amounts of money pretty quickly, you know that there's something like you're burning lots of money too much from somewhere. You might instead fire from the top and get rid of some of the people who have been making some of these decisions who also have much, 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 much higher salaries. You're going to get rid of the metabolically, hungry. That's how your body works. When you lose weight slowly, your body's willing to tap into its fat stores. When you lose weight rapidly, your body's going to try to get rid of things like muscle tissue because that stuff burns way more energy. And if you are burning massive amounts, it's way easier to get rid of something that's metabolically active than it is to get rid of something that's metabolically semi-active. Not that fat is inactive, still cells, So we are going to see clients about 300 to 500 reduction per day. BMI, if your BMI is between 27 to 35, a reduction of 300 to 500 calories will result in about 0.5 to 1 pounds of weight loss per week, which is equivalent to 10% weight loss over a 6-month period. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and say this. So let's break that down, right? We know that there are 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat, right? So if you reduce 300 calories per day times 7 days per week, that is going to equal 2,100 calories burned per week, which is equivalent to 0.6 pounds lost per week, right? So that's 0.6 pounds lost. If you reduce by 300 calories, you're going to lose just over half a pound of fat loss per week, right? So now if we look at that, right, like 0.6 pounds, we look at the number of weeks that are in 6 months time, right? So that's going to be about 25 weeks-ish. So 25 times 0.6, that's going to be about 15 pounds, right? And so when we look at that, that's 15 pounds lost over 6 months, by the way, which actually is not a bad rate when you think about it, right? 15 pounds is a dramatic difference. Not to mention like if you're gaining muscle and things like that. So over a 6-month period, if you lose this many pounds and your BMI is 27, that's likely, about 10% of your body weight, if you're a 150-pound person and you drop that off, that's actually pretty good. And that's just putting you in like the overweight category. As you starting to getting into the obese categories, right, where maybe we make 0.5 losing like a full pound a week, right? So 500 calories per day. That's going to be 1 pound per week. That's 25 pounds lost. That's a 250-pound person, right? So we start to see like, how these percentages are similar, no matter like what you're looking at. This is a pretty good way to break it down. This has been shown to be very effective. Now, one thing that's in your desktop here, one thing that's in your manual that you'll see actually, and I'm just going to pull this up real quick. I'm going to page 55. All right. So I want to pull up a line here that's really good because it does talk about a study. And by the way, the study is actually in at the end of the chapter. You can read the whole thing if you're interested in it. Like if you go to the very end of the nutrition chapter, I cannot remember which one it is, but one of these is like it has all of it's like where it's getting this information from, so you can find it and it's cited. But going back up, where is it? I found it earlier because I knew I was going to be talking about this. is it in this table? Yeah, so what you're gonna see in this section right here, so this is gonna be on page 57. What you're gonna see is it finds that like much more like smaller manageable weight loss results in fat loss rather than just weight lost, right? Like we don't want to lose body weight, we want to lose body fat, right? Like that's our main goal here. When you lose too much weight too rapidly, you end up tapping into your muscle stores. Another really good way to think about this that they've broken down, if you ever want to watch a really great video that breaks this down really well, actually, there's a great video on YouTube by Jeremy Ethier. He has been tapping into nutrition loss per week. That's probably the worst one. And that's not the one I want. Yeah, this one right here. What's the most amount of fat that you can lose in a week? He's got a really great video here that actually breaks down like how rapidly you should lose weight. And for the most part, it's going to be about 0.7% of your total body weight per week. That's a really good way to kind of adhere. That's what they found is the maximum amount while still maintaining maximal muscle. So if you want to be as aggressive as possible about your fat loss, and this isn't what's presented here, which is why I'm not putting it in your notes, but if you want to write this down, and you want to watch that video, a lot of evidence suggests that like, if you want to be as aggressive as possible while still maintaining the maximum amount, like, you know, like you're going to lose muscle. Like this is something that's going to happen. But about 0.7% of your body weight per week, that's a pretty effective amount. And so like, let's say you weigh 175 pounds, right? Times 0.07, you know, that's I'm sorry, 0.007, right? Yeah, so that's about like the maximum amount somebody like this would want to lose is about 1.2 pounds per week. And then if we have like and so if that's like 1.2, that's a little more aggressive than what we're seeing here. But it is like, you know, new evidence. What's up, Irene?
Yeah, so if you're losing say like a pound a week, how do you know? Is there a way to tell how much of it is fat and how much of it is water weight?
Totally. So you just got to go back to our formula from yesterday, right? So what you would do is you would, after 1 week's time, weigh yourself again, do your body fat percentage again, and then multiply your weight by your body fat percentage. And that will tell you how much lean mass you have versus how much fat mass you have. So if your fat mass dropped by 0.8 pounds and your body weight dropped by 1 pound, you lost 80% fat and 20% muscle or other tissues. Could be water.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. So this is definitely something we know. I'm not gonna put the other one up here, but we can see like there's other ones as well. But generally, a 300 to 1,000 calorie deficit is the most you're gonna want to really create. So why don't we want to? Well, come on, stop it. Why don't we want to go any more aggressive than that? Well, we just know that like overly restrictive programs, right, or programs that are like way too many calories, like put you on a 1,200 calorie diet, right? So like actually really quickly, let's go back to that 175 pound person, right? If we go to like a BMR calculator, right? We wanted to lose a maximum of 1.2. That's the one we just saw a second ago. Let's say this person is 25 years old, 5'10", they weigh 175 pounds, right? Their BMR is about 1,785 calories per day. And let's say they exercise every day, right? They engage in daily exercise. They're burning 2,767 calories, right? Now, if you wanted to lose 1.2 pounds, and we know there's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, 3,500 times 1.2, so you lose a little bit more. That's a 4,200 calorie deficit over the course of a 7-day week. So that means you got to take 600 calories out of this, and because they are already engaging in daily exercise. So diet alone means they're going to be eating 2,167 calories, which could be okay, right? That's not too hard to stick to. But here's my problem with overly restrictive diets. Let's say you're on like a 2,000 calorie, 1,500 calorie, 1,200 calorie diet, and you've got iron will. Let's take willpower out of the equation. I mean, we're going to talk about how like willpower is super hard to stick to, but let's just like take your willpower for calories out of the equation and say that you're perfect. You don't have any problem sticking to like a diet at all, at least calorically. But then it's your kid's birthday, right? You're eating a 1,500 calorie diet and you go get cupcakes, and it's like, you got to have a cupcake on your kid's birthday, right? But you are only consuming 1,500 calories per day. Well, lucky for you, you set your meal plan up to have 3 500-calorie meals per day. Piece of cake. And you know what? Even luckier, because I'm making the scenario up, is you bought a 500-calorie cupcake. So now you're like, oh, well, all I have to do is replace dinner with this cupcake. Boom, I'm sticking to my diet. And you did it. You're right. Calorically, you stuck to your diet. Here's the problem. That is 1/3 of your meals. That cupcake does not have vitamin C in it, probably. It does not have high levels of fiber in it. So you just took away 1/3 of your chances to get the recommended amount of vitamin C per day, the recommended amount of iron per day, molybdenum, copper, chromium, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, fiber, whatever you want to talk about. You just eliminated 33% of your chances to get what you need in a day. That's one of the biggest issues with overly restrictive diets, is it takes away your ability to get the things that you need to live like with a healthy body. That sucks. But now we also have to address the fact that nobody's perfect and nobody can even stick to a super overly restrictive caloric diet. You might be able to stick to it for a little while, but like we just do not see that overly restrictive programs often result in nutritionally deficient meal plans. They often result in a loss of lean body tissue. So your body gets rid of muscle rather than getting rid of fat. It also, when you engage in this, it's very dangerous for your brain. It has been associated with disordered eating behaviors, becoming obsessive about how you consume food, which is not great, right? And the biggest thing is they are difficult to maintain, often resulting in weight regain once the program stops. And this is why I don't like restrictive programs. Now, I think this also on the flip side can explain why people find certain diets like keto to be so effective. Keto is a high-fat diet, and fat tastes awesome. Like, it's one of the things that's like great about eating. Fat is used to like add texture to food and flavor and all these like different things. So is it that the ketogenic diet is scientifically better for you, or is it that the ketogenic diet is easier to stick to? And so you're staying with the target calories that you're targeting more consistently. I think that it's much easier to explain it describing the latter. I think that's also why people tend to stick to, that's why any diet can work. I always use this example, but like I could make a diet up right now, and I'm gonna call it the alphabet diet, okay? So it's gonna be a 26-day weight loss program, right? The alphabet diet. And the way it works is you're allowed to eat anything you want, but for day 1, you can only consume foods that begin with the letter A. On day 2, you can only consume foods that begin with the letter B. On day 3, you can only consume foods. So like day 1, you can have as many apples as you want. You can have asparagus, apple smoked bacon, any food that begins with the letter A. B, you can have plenty of, why can't I think of foods that start with B?
Broccoli.
Broccoli, thank you. You can have all those things that you want. Beef, there you go. You can get your protein in. Here's the thing:
Beets.
you can stick. If somebody sticks to this diet, chances are they'll actually lose weight. You know, because what are they going to eat on day X? They'll have a day where it's like designed. It's like this is going to be a rough day. You know, I'll write a little 26-page book that'll go with it, and I'll market the whole thing and put it up online, and people will buy it. And it'll be the next thing on Oprah's weight loss book list. You know, um, and day X, it's like, yeah, this is the rough day where you don't get to eat much. You know, but this is all part of the process of losing weight. Um, Chances are somebody would stick to it. And what it was going to do is it's going to restrict the crap out of your calories. You're going to get overwhelmed and not be able to eat anything. And then you end up creating an energy deficit and you lost weight. Congratulations. But it's a super hard program to stick to because you have, you know, that's some weird mental hoops to have to walk through every day. You know, and it's like you were looking forward to the O day because you get to have plenty of Oreos. That's well within range. But like, it's a difficult diet to adhere to for the long term, even though it was effective in the short term. It created a deficit, it did its job, but it was difficult to stay in. And so I ended up regaining weight in the end. So I want to show you just a really fun video here all about showing how willpower is a very exhaustible resource. The marshmallow test. All right. By the way, this video is also adorable. Is it this one? Which is the one that I like? I think it's this one, actually. You know what's funny about the marshmallow test? There's like a TikTok thing running around like on social media right now where it's like they leave something in front of their kid and then like they walk away and they're like, don't eat it. And then like they come back and the kid like listened to their parents, or some kids like didn't. And it's like an adorable video. They like, I've seen people do it with their pets where they like leave like a steak in front of their dog and they're like, don't have it, and they like walk away. And then they like reward them when they get back. I was talking about this the other day. I was like, that's the marshmallow test. All right, so here's the marshmallow test. Oh, nope.
Okay,
I think I
so
did.
here's the deal. There's a marshmallow.
Oh, no,
You
no,
can
that's
either
right.
wait, and I'll bring you back another one, so you can have two, or you can eat it now. You can eat it now, or you can wait, and I'll bring you back two. Okay? Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I have one marshmallow for each of you. And here's the deal. You can either eat it now, or you can wait till I get back, and you can have two. Okay? So eat it now, or wait till I get back, and you can have two. And I'll be back in a moment. Yep, if you wait, you get two, or you can eat it now, whichever you want. Okay? I'll be back in a moment.
I just feel like this is the wrong video. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter, but
I wonder what we're gonna do. Are you gonna eat it? Like I'm hungry. But if you wait until she gets back, she'll give you two. She still won't give you two because you ate it. So you're gonna eat a single bite. So go show her.
That's hilarious.
I love like poor kid.
Brad, don't you catch up with him like 10, 12, 15 years later and do
So
it.
the original, yeah, that's what we're going with the original, yeah.
This is gonna take a lot for a kid though.
Right?
Yeah.
she's my favorite. She's like, whatever, man. Like, okay, let's get to where the adults come back.
Okay, So I have this marshmallow, and you can eat it now, or if you wait a little bit, I'll bring back 2 for you, okay?
Oh no. Here we go.
Good. Okay, well, I'm gonna go and I haven't found marshmallow yet, so I'm gonna look for some more, but you sit here, and if you haven't eaten that one, I'll bring
So
you back
mean,
another one,
right?
okay?
Like she comes back and then she
I'll be
leaves
right back.
again.
Well, we're eating, waiting. Still ate some of that stuff. Still good.
That little boy is so good. My boys would have been crazy.
So some of them did pretty well in the beginning, and then they like give in towards the end.
Good. You get 2. Good job. You can eat it. You can eat it now.
Okay. So that's a great place to pause. What we're looking at is like we see there is a difference between like how much willpower people have sometimes, right? Like the little girl immediately like starts ticking away like little bits, right? And that's actually like, that just means that when it comes to like seeing like certain long-term rewards, some people are a little bit better at like projecting that and understanding what they're going to get in like a long term versus some people who tend to be a little more instant gratification, right? So that's one of the conclusions that they were drawing from like the study. And the original version of this was done way back, I think it was like the 70s when they were like looking at this, but they did it with the same thing. They did it with kids, and it was called the marshmallow test. Now there's more to this experiment. They caught up with those kids later, and they found that the ones who were able to resist were a little more successful in having like ordered lifestyles. They were a little more successful, like, in like their careers and little things like that. They noticed that like the more willpower someone had, the more likely they were to adhere to, in the face of like adversity and like stick to like a program. Now, how do we increase our willpower? Right? Because here's what they also found. This is another thing that they've done. They've done this very similar study to adults as well. And what they do is after something like this, which is like you have 2 options. You have an instant gratification option, and you have like a prolonged gratification option. And they found that like if you adhere to one, and then you're given a very difficult cognitive task afterwards, you are less likely to continue that task, and you're more likely to get frustrated right away. But the ones who like ate the marshmallow right away did better in the second task because they didn't use up their willpower on the first. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well enough? Like, if you do adhere to a program for a little while, like, some of those kids, like, like you're looking like that kid's got iron willpower, right? Like that kid totally didn't eat his marshmallow. Well, what they find is like when they give them another task that involves even more willpower, maybe they get through the second task as well, but eventually everybody breaks down, right? And so like they find that like our attention spans get like shortened. And this is kind of explaining why it's so difficult to stick to a difficult program for so long. Like we struggle when we're stuck on a program for a very long time. So we need to find ways to receive gratification in order to like continue progress. That's really one of the goals of designing a good weight loss program. I've had conversations with this with like my dietitian friends before, and I'm like, a lot of times like a good weight loss program is less about the food that you're consuming and more about how you're consuming it. Like finding ways to make the program easier to stick to. And I think that explains why things like keto work so well. Because it's like, you know, I'm on a diet, but I get to have bacon every day. Right? So how we doing on that so far, guys? We getting a pretty good, a clear idea of that?
Yeah, it's sort of like give and take, sort of, Brad. Like,
Yeah.
counter-
Yeah, it's why I really don't like, when it comes to diet programs, I really don't like to tell people what not to eat. I think so many diet programs are all about like what to cut out of your diet, you know? Like the, you know, detox diets and paleo and this and that. It's all about like what you shouldn't eat. But me personally, I like to focus on what you should eat. Like that's to me a much more positive approach. Like let's make sure you're
Yes.
getting enough protein. Let's make sure you're getting carbs in and consuming them
Yeah.
as you should be.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm not saying, you know, it's the perfect diet or anything like that, but I am saying it plays to human strengths rather than playing to our weaknesses, you know? I definitely know that, like, I'll give you one more example from my own personal life here. You guys might notice that, like, I wear either a black or a white t-shirt, like, every day. That is actually me trying to avoid something that I definitely suffer from, which is called decision fatigue. It's not like a psychological disorder or anything like that. It is literally I have weak willpower. Like it's not like it's not a disorder. It's nothing like that. It's just something that I know about myself. If you ask me a million questions in a row, a lot of times I'm like boom, 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 boom. I don't know that one. Anything. I don't care. Like eventually I'll just be like, you know, I'll just break down, just whatever. And this is why, like, you know, looking at decision fatigue, go to the grocery store with a shopping list. Do not make it up as you go. You'll be in there forever, and eventually you're gonna pick up the ding dongs, you know, like, and a box of Oreos and potato chips. Your brain will break down. If I open my like here, you look at my closet. It is all like white and black t-shirts. I have literally 6 of each. And then I've got 5 of these long sleeve two-tone shirts, and then a bunch of running shirts and a bunch of long sleeve shirts to put over top, and 1 pair of jeans and 2 pairs of shoes. Like, aside from like dress shoes, and I have dress shoes and things like that. I have suits and all that. But like in my everyday life, I have 2 pairs of shoes that I alternate between, and I wear the same shirt every day, and I've got 7 pairs of shorts. And that way, like when I get up, I don't think about what I have to wear. I just grab the first thing that I see and I put it on, and I don't have to deal with like decision. I don't have to think about what I'm wearing in the morning. So then I'm less likely to get exhausted when I'm like, should I, you know, go set this task up today, or should I do this today? You know, I can spend my willpower thinking about both of those decisions because I didn't spend it on something else. It's one of the best parts of meal prep too. I don't have to think about like what I have to cook for the day. It's already done for me. And that's, I'm not saying everybody has to do that. I'm saying like that's a strategy that I have like talked with people and like worked on and studied myself. That's how I have found to make my own life as effective as possible. Now, if you're the type of person who like, and I know that I'm not like a very food motivated or very fashion motivated person. So I'm able to like eliminate those as factors because they're not important to me. But if you were to pick something that is important to me, like what exercise am I going to do? You know, like what type of like activity am I going to engage in? I care a lot about that. And so like, you know, that's where I can make decisions that enhance my life. So I can spend time thinking about those things. Let's go ahead and look at some of our macronutrient ranges, right? So what's the proper way for weight control? Well, we want to create like a total deficit intake. And so if you're creating like a caloric deficit, that means that you're not consuming lots of different types of foods. And so you're decreasing all of your foods. But some of those are very important and you don't want to have too far of a reduction. So we're going to see proportional decreases in proteins, fats, and carbs. But remember, if you go too low on proteins, you're not going to have enough protein to repair your body during exercise. And if you go too low on carbs, you're not going to have enough energy to get through your exercise. So we kind of want to retool how we think about carbs, right? Or we kind of want to retool how we think about macronutrients. We want to consider that fat is important for our body in our diet to ensure that we have like proper hormonal function and proper like cellular function. We want to remember that like carbohydrates are really important because they allow us to have energy production to get through our workouts, and we want to have proper protein in order to repair the body. So how do we get like these proper ranges? Well, we do have like our AMDRs, right? Our acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges, right? You know what, actually, hold on, I'm gonna put that down a line. Macronutrient guidelines. Distribution ranges, or AMDR, right? This is going to be in general. I'm gonna go ahead and skip past this just really quick because I want to get to this slide. You know, for protein, you want it to be 10 to 35% total caloric intake. For carbs, you want it to be 45 to 65% total caloric intake. And for fats, you want it to be 20 to 35% total caloric intake. Right, so those are what we're generally recommending. Now, I'm not a big fan of just saying, okay, well, let's, you know, I'm going to consume 2,000 calories, right? Right, if let's say that that's the diet that I'm on, and I'm going to pick 35% protein, right? Because I want to be on a high protein diet for some reason, right? So I'm going to go 2,000 times 0.35. That's 700 calories from protein. There's 4 calories per gram. So that's 175 grams per day. So I know that's perfect. I weigh 175 pounds, so I'm getting 1 gram per pound, which holy crap, that's a lot of protein. So is that the best way to go about it? Maybe, maybe not, right? Instead, my favorite method for, you know, protein intake, recommended protein intakes. My favorite is going to be if your client is sedentary, that is going to be 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, or 0.4 grams per pound of body weight, right? Either of those is going to work. If you are a strength athlete, that is going to be 1.2 up to 1.7 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is going to be 0.5 to 0.8 grams. Oh boy, hold on. 0.5. Making sure that my notes are consistent here. 0.5 up to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And if you're an endurance athlete, which means you're doing like if you're like a marathon runner, like a cardio person, soccer player versus, you know, a football player or something, you're going to look at 1.2 up to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. And the only reason those numbers are a little lower for that type of athlete is, number one, you're still getting like plenty of protein, and number two, you're just going to need more carbohydrates. If you're an endurance athlete, you're going to need a higher amount of carbs. So that's going to be 0.5 to 0.6 grams per pound. So let's look at, you know, so I was getting like in scenario 1, 175 grams per day, right? Which was a lot. But if you look at like my body weight of 175 pounds and we multiply that by, you know, let's say I'm the highest category of strength athlete, right? that's going to be just times 0.8. I really only need about 140 grams of protein per day to get enough protein. Anything beyond that, my body is just going to convert to carbohydrates, or it'll convert it to fat. It's going to convert it to whatever stored form it needs. So that's a much better recommended protein intake.
Yeah, that's like what we had discussed before too. Remember how I was mentioned that I've always heard that, oh, you're supposed to eat 1 pound or 1 gram per pound of body weight, and that's
Totally.
like what I've gone off diet wise for so long. But then you showed me this calculation, and it's a lot less than what I imagined I needed to take in.
Yeah, and that gram per pound thing is really popular because it got popularized by bodybuilders way back in the day. And here's the thing. This is so funny because I just watched this video last night. But do you guys ever watch Buff Dudes on YouTube? I love those guys so much. They are goofballs. If you ever get a chance, they have a YouTube channel, and like they're actually like they write good programs and stuff, and they actually use evidence-based stuff, but they act like super, super bros, and it's very funny to me. Like they just like they're constantly flexing, like, and they're like Buff Dudes, like they're just like they're just the broest of bros, and I love them for it. Like, and they got like long hair, like they both like one of them looks like Thor, and the other one looks like, I don't know, so Thor. But it's fun to watch. But they'll do these like really fun little experiments. Like they went vegan for 30 days, they went keto for 30 days, and they like give their reviews on them and stuff. And one thing they tried was they went with like the classic bodybuilder pre-cut diet. And so like before they went on they calculated how many calories they wanted to eat, and then they went with like the classic bodybuilder meal, right? Chicken and broccoli. That's what you hear in every freaking, whenever you hear about it, they're like, what'd you have? It's like chicken, brown rice, and broccoli. Chicken, brown rice, and everybody, that's what they always say. So they made chicken with only broccoli, and that's the only thing they consumed for 1 week. By the way, I'm not saying this is healthy. And so they were eating at one point, one of the brothers even says, he's like, he weighs like 220 pounds. He's like, I should be consuming just under 200 pounds or 200 grams of protein per day based on my body weight. He's like, I don't even like doing 1 gram per pound, which is what you hear a lot of times. But on this diet, he's consuming like 326 grams of protein per day. And it's just like chicken breast, and it's all just a ton of chicken breasts and a ton of broccoli. And he's like, and they say it in the video, they're like, look, this is not healthy, but we're doing it for science, like we're doing it for this stupid video. And he loses like 20 pounds in a week. I mean, like his body just becomes like super dehydrated because it's like constantly hydrolysis. It's using hydrolysis to break up all that protein. So it's just like sucking water like crazy. So he's probably he said in the video, I think he's consuming like a gallon of water a day. I'm sure that's not true. I'll bet he was consuming way more than that. But he drops this massive amount of weight. And sure enough, like bodybuilders going through like a cut before competition, that's totally something they'll do. They'll do like these really extreme cuts, that are great in the short term. But then even at the end of the video, he's like, so we're back on a normal diet. And like he gains like 3 or 4 pounds in 1 day. Because his body is just like, the minute he gets carbohydrates, his body was like, glycogen. And it just stored the crap out of it. And you've got like, 6 or 7 pounds of glycogen stored inside. And bigger body you have, you got even more of it. So he probably has like 10 pounds of glycogen that he could store inside of his body. So the minute he got carbs again, his body was like, oh my God. And it just puffed right back up.
So this was for 7 days?
Yeah, they did like a 7-day cycle. They did it before like a photo shoot.
Wow.
They made it into Men's Health magazine, and they were all excited about it. So they were trying to like shred up before like this photo shoot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun. You should look up the video. It's actually really fun. I love watching those guys. I love that stuff more. I like watching when it comes to YouTube. Like I don't watch a lot of like fitness YouTube, except for like people who do like I like a lot of Jeff Nipper. He does like a lot of peer-reviewed science. Jeremy Ether does a lot of peer-reviewed stuff. But then I love those guys because they're just goofy. What's up,
Yeah.
Irene?
Did they eat white meat or dark meat, or did it matter?
I
Or
think they were
did
doing chicken breasts. I think they were going low calorie, so they're trying to keep the fat low.
even more boring,
What's that?
even more plain?
Yeah, man. And
Yeah.
they seasoned it
Yeah.
with like you look at it, it looked like barbecue chicken actually. But it was like a sugar-free dressing, and they like marinated it in that. But still, like, whoa.
So, so that just sends their bodies like into hydrolysis, like overload.
Totally.
And
So
then
I mean, like, which is great if you're trying to like
Yeah.
skin in and show off your abs. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, your body becomes dehydrated. Your skin has no water in it, and it just like, and like you get
Yeah.
super shredded looking. And
But
then all
you'd
you
have
get
to,
like a light above you, and you get lots of shadows.
yeah, you'd have to take in a lot of water for that, because it's got to break down all that extra protein, right?
Seriously, right? I mean, it's lucky their kidneys didn't shut down, But yeah, that's where like all these super high protein recommendations, it's like it's where they came from. That's an old school bodybuilding thing, and that's where the fitness industry started. You read your first chapter of NASA, Joel Gold, who started the first like Gold's commercial gym. There's a lot of old school bro science that was not ever peer reviewed or tested. It was just stuff that people who were in good shape did. And,
Yeah.
it worked for them, but is it healthy is a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's like Arnold's book. I read Arnold's book when I was a kid, and he talks about like eating like 10 raw eggs like right in the beginning of the morning, and I'm like, if you told somebody that now, how bad they would be scared for their lives.
Yeah.
But he did it every day. So it's so crazy.
Yeah. All right. So other recommendations you're going to hear a lot of times: should you decrease your carbohydrates and decrease your fats, right? Low carb diets, low fat diets, right? That's what we've been told our whole lives, right? Low fat because it makes you fat. Low carb because it's high in sugar, it makes you fat, right? There is no consensus that one particular macronutrient distribution range is better than any other. I'm going to put that in underline right here. There is no consensus between scientists that one macro range is better than another for weight loss. We have seen success. Low-fat diets work. Low-carb diets work. High-protein diets work. High-fat diets work. All diets work because they all adhere to the same principle of thermodynamics, right? They all result in energy deficits. That's what works. You could be on a diet like me. Like I said, I'm burning about 3,200 a day. I could eat 2,000 calories a day of white granulated table sugar and lose weight. Along with a lot of other stuff. But I could do that for a week and I'd lose weight. I could eat olive oil only for a week and I would lose weight. I could eat nothing but chicken breast for a week and lose weight. Thermodynamics is what causes weight loss. So then the question becomes like, well, what's the best thing to eat when it comes down to it? Like, so what's the best one? Well, the healthiest choices you want to make are macronutrient and micronutrient rich diets, right? Food choices that are less healthy often provide plenty of macros, but very few micros. And this is where we look at like our dietary reference intakes, right? Remember our DRIs that we talked about last class? There are reference values for each of those specific things. How much, like, what's our DRI for calcium, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's 2,300 milligrams a day. Nope, 1,000 milligrams per day. No, that's the RDA. No, DRI.
What is DRI, Brad? Is it daily?
It's a dietary reference intake. It's the amount that is considered to be healthy for most people. I guess it is 1,000 milligrams per day. And there's a couple different ones. There's the RDA is like the recommended, and that's what's good for 97.5% of the population. So for the most part, this is good. But if you're like pregnant, you need more. You're gonna need like 1,300. What was I thinking of? What's 23? Is it sodium? DRI for sodium. That's 1,200. 1,500. So you're gonna see these numbers like that. That's what we want to focus on. We want to focus on getting our micronutrients in. You've got DRIs for every vitamin, mineral, and proteins, fats, and carbs, right? Now, your AMDRs, those acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges, are the healthy intakes of the macronutrients, right? They don't take into account micronutrients. So these are percentages that work pretty well. And you can maintain these, and you should maintain these even if you're on a calorie restricted diet. So if you're on a 3,000 calorie diet and you're eating 45% carbs, then 1,350 calories are going to come from carbohydrates, which is going to be 337 grams per day. And if you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, you're still going to use, let's say, 65%. That's going to be 1,300 calories per day, which is only 325 grams. So you're going to see changes, like depending on how many, calories you're consuming. But the one that I think should maintain pretty constant, you should do your protein intake based on what type of athlete you are. And then you should focus on your AMDRs for these other nutrients for the remaining calories, okay? And you'll find that like when you do this, you will fall where you should in the protein, even if you're like super, super heavy. Like let's say I'm on, let's just take a look here and look at our differences. Let's say we've got a 2,000 calorie diet versus a 3,000 calorie diet, right? But our person weighs the same in both scenarios, okay? Let's see here. So actually, so there should be a general reduction in calories to create weight loss, but the percentages of macronutrients should remain the same. Okay, so let's look at an example here. I'm going to put a table in here. So this is scenario 1. This is scenario 2. In both of these, our client weighs 200 pounds. Right? But this is going to be a 2,000 calorie diet. And this is going to be a 2,500 calorie diet. Right? So if we're looking at this, and we're looking at these two different scenarios here, we need to figure out like what we're supposed to eat. Let's go with a recommended protein intake. Let's say both of these are strength athletes, right? Strength athlete. Okay, so protein intake, right? So their protein intake is going to be, we're going to say, let's go with 1.5 because it's kind of in the middle, right? Actually, we'll go with 0.7 grams per pound, 0.7 grams per pound for both people because they both weigh the same. So that's going to be 200 times 0.7, 140 grams of protein per day. So that's the same. But now that what that means for their diet is different, right? What that means for a 2,000 calorie diet is that's 140 times 4. That's 560 calories, right? In both of these, they're both getting 560 calories per day from protein. But if we divide that by a 2,000 calorie diet, that means that it's 28%. Actually, that falls outside of our, or no, it doesn't. 28% total caloric intake. Scenario 2, who's on a 2,500 calorie diet, that's 560 divided by 2,500. That's only 22% total caloric intake, right, for protein. Does that make sense, guys? So now we've got we've got 72% to play with over here, and over here we've got 78% to play with. So now we can consume higher levels of fats and carbohydrates because protein is taking up less, even though they're consuming the same amount per day. So now, if we want to choose like our carb intake, if we go with, if that's 28%, right? And we want to go with, let's go with a moderate carb. We'll go right in the middle. We'll pick 55%. That leaves us 83 minus 100. That leaves us 17% fat. So we're below the fat intake in this version if we choose 55% carbs. So you guys see how we did that? So
No.
that's too low, right? That's not high enough. So I don't want to choose 55% carbs for scenario 1 because that's going to leave me with not enough fat in my diet to be healthy. So instead, let's try 45% carbs. So 45% carbohydrates, plus I've already figured out it's 28% of my intake from protein. That's 73 minus 100. That leaves me with 27, which falls well within normal ranges. So now I picked a slightly lower carb variant on this side. So now I just got to go 45%, right? So 140 grams per day. Right? So now how many grams of carbohydrates do I need? Well, we chose 45%, so 2,000 calories times 0.45, it's 45%. And we know there's 4 calories in every gram of carbohydrate, so we divide that by 4. That's 225 grams of carbs. Carb intake, 225. We're going to say 45% or 225 grams of carbs per day. Right, fat intake, we do the same thing. We're going to say fat intake is, I'm sorry, fat intake is the remainder for this person. So 45 plus 28, 73 minus 100, 27%. So now 2,000 times 0.27, 540 calories from fat. We know there's 9 calories in every gram of fat, so we divide that by 9. That's 60 grams per day. There we go. And that's how we figured out scenario 1. Let's look at scenario 2 here. We only got 22% protein. Let's try that 55% carbs again, right? So 22 plus 55, that's 77. Leaves us 23, which is within normal range for our fat. By the way, I could totally do this in the opposite direction as well. I could just start with the highest of fat. Maybe I want to be on a slightly higher fat diet, right? So I go 22 plus 35. As long as that leaves me somewhere between 45 and 65, I'm good on carbohydrates, right? I could go in both directions. It doesn't matter like which one you go in. So now let's go 2,500 times 0.45. So carb intake, actually, sorry. Yeah, well, no, we'll do that. We'll do 45% just for the sake of it. 45% or 281 grams per day. Right, fat intake, 2,500, no, 22 plus 45 minus 33, 25, 825 grams, cool. All right, fat intake is 23% or 91 grams per. So you can see both of these people had the same protein intake because they both weighed the same, but their carbs and fat intakes were ever so slightly different, right? If I chose the same carb intake, that meant that I had a lower fat diet over here and a higher fat diet over here. Both are good. Both of these diets are going to work, you know? This person over here doesn't have as much of a caloric deficit as this person over here. So maybe this person's going to have faster, you know, weight loss results. But now let's say it's like too severe. Like let's say I go way too low on my calories. Maybe 2,000 calories is resulting in, you know, faster than, you know, 10% weight loss over a 6-month period. This person could lose muscle mass and this person might not. But then we look at this person over here, maybe they're not going to reach their goal. So which is better? I don't think it works that way, right? We're not analyzing these two diets here to determine which diet is better. That's not the goal of what we're looking at, right? We're just looking at how we can structure things in order to like get them within healthy, normal ranges. Is that message, do you guys get that?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. I think that's just a really, really common mistake that most trainers make is they really think that like, or not most trainers, but like I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that like there's a magic macro range that's going to result in more weight loss than something else. You know, both these have 45% carbs. Both these people should have plenty of energy, you know, but if you like amp up your fat intake and amp up your protein and drop your carbs like crazy, your lifts might suffer. And then you aren't working very hard and now you're not gaining muscle or strength. So when you lose weight, maybe you're not maintaining muscle very effectively. You want to remember like what these macros are for. That's what's important. So simply establishing that a food delivers carb, protein, and fat does not affirm its nutrition quality, right? Like if you look at this food right here, right, this is a hot dog, which has 570 calories in it, and it's got 2 grams of fiber, 24 grams of protein, 46 grams of carb, 33 grams of fat, 12 grams of saturated fat. Oh, that's bad. And 2 grams of trans fat. Oh, this hot dog is the devil. For the record, 17 grams of monounsaturated fat. That's not bad. That's actually very good for you. And 80 milligrams of cholesterol. Jesus Christ. This is a heart attack in a bun. So if you look at this, it's like, you know, 570 calories. Let's say this is your lunch. 570 calorie lunch is pretty close to like, if you're trying to adhere to a 2,000 calorie diet, you know, and you're doing 500 calories per meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then 250 calorie snacks throughout the day. This is well within the right caloric range, but is this healthy? Definitely not, right? Like, and you could reach your goals on this. You still could. You could hit a caloric deficit on this as your diet. Doesn't mean that you're doing it healthy though. And again, that's where these are two different concepts. These are different things. The idea of like meeting, you know, the buff dudes were on a diet that totally helped them lose the weight they wanted to. Was it healthy? Definitely not. Totally different conversations. Your clients are not going to see the distinction. So that's where we got to talk about nutrient density, right? Which is distinct from energy density, right? It is the measure of how many micronutrients are found in a particular food. Energy density is a measure of how much energy is in food. So we know macronutrients are our energy, you know, that's how we get our energy dense stuff, right? When we are telling our clients to, you know, focus on like healthy eating, really the message is we want to focus on foods that are nutrient dense, not energy dense, right? And I'm sure I can find nutrient dense versus energy dense. If we look at this, you know, this is 1,000 calories. This is also 1,000 calories. Which one has more energy? Neither. Which one has more nutrients? Down here, right? That's really what we're seeing, right? There's a big difference between one and the other. Both of these, these are both 1 ounce. They weigh the same. 10 calories over here, 150 calories over here. More sodium, which is a nutrient, so arguably this is more sodium dense, which is arguably a good thing in some scenarios. But calcium, potassium, you can see magnesium, you can see all these other things. This ain't got nothing in it. That is the difference, right? There's 150 calories, right? These are actually both nutrient-dense foods, but now we start to talk a little bit about like this has a lot of really good nutrients in it. You know, this is full of healthy fats and, you know, probably plenty of minerals. This is full of vitamins and phytochemicals. But now we also have another trick that we're going to start pivoting into here in just a minute, where we also talk about like just the amount of food that you're consuming. One of the big benefits of consuming nutrient-dense options is that you get to eat a lot of food. It takes a lot of food to fill things up. And that's going to lead me to another really fun video. This video is going up on YouTube. Guaranteed I'm going to get copywritten struck later today. Science, ASAP Science, 200 calories. Here's a fun little video.
You know, I thought I was getting cardio through my running, but I'm not.
That was really.
We're all salty.
While this video plays, I'm gonna go grab 3 meal prep containers. I'll be right back.
Eat healthy and be aware of our calorie intake through the day. But have you ever stopped to think about what those calories look like? For example, this is 200 calories worth of apple. On the other hand, if we take 200 calories of cheese, it doesn't look quite the same in terms of volume. Throw 200 calories of wine into the mix for a nice wine and cheese, and you have 3 very different looking versions of 200 calories. Now compare that wine to beer or rum, and you have 3 very different party nights for your stomach. Or how about the eggs you had for breakfast? Compare that to 200 calories of sweet cereal you had the other day, or even some oatmeal, and they're bound to seem a bit different. But if you had gotten a sausage and egg breakfast sandwich, you'd be looking at even less. Broccoli? You may be surprised by the amount you can eat before you hit 200 calories. Not to mention, this stuff is packed with nutrients and a great source of fiber. A slice of pizza? Less than a slice if it has pepperoni on it. And what about the classic Big Mac? Try a 200-calorie small Mac. And since calories are simply units of energy, with the calories of 217 Big Macs, you could drive your car 35 kilometers. So wait, what is a calorie? Specifically, a calorie is the amount of energy or heat it takes to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. We need energy to survive, and we get it from food. Carbohydrates, protein, and fats are the building blocks of our food, and each contribute a different amount of energy to our bodies. The average person needs somewhere between 2,000 to 2,700 calories a day, depending on factors like height, weight, gender, and age. And some foods, like peanut butter, are calorie dense, filling this requirement faster. Or that muffin you ate as a snack, chances are its calorie content is higher than you thought. And those irresistible Doritos, don't lie, you ate the whole bag. Unlike celery, which has very few calories, giving you lots to munch on. Or carrots, not so much Hershey's Kisses. And if you're eating salad to limit calories, watch out for creamy dressing, particularly French dressing. On its own, black coffee is quite low in calories. You can have a lot before you hit 200 calories. But once you add 1 cream and 1 sugar, those calories quickly add up. Turn it into a specialty drink like an iced peppermint white mocha, and you might be shocked at the amount left. But just because something has less calories doesn't necessarily mean it's healthier or better for you. Take, for example, this 200 calories of Coke versus 200 calories of whole milk. While it's true that the Coke contains fewer calories per liter, you can't forget that milk contains many nutrients and healthy fats. Or like brown bread versus white bread. Yes, whole wheat bread often contains more calories per slice, but it also contains more nutrients and fiber. So counting calories isn't the be-all and end-all, but thinking about what goes into your body is bound to make a difference. At the end of the day, eat a healthy and balanced diet. And if you'd like to see even more 200-calorie examples, check out the Wise Geek post we've linked in the description, which puts even more food into perspective. Got a burning question?
So, I like how they kind of flip it at the end there, by the way. Sometimes lower calorie options are not healthier. Sometimes they have less nutrition in that, nutrient density in them. So really quickly, this is looking at, this is probably the least appetizing of the day, but this is, let's see here. That's my like breakfast. And so it's like little sausage patties and like 2 little whole grain like waffles. Oh God, lots of strawberry. And a bunch of strawberries. Well, that's not good. Hold on. Oh, wait, no, I got a coffee cup.
5-second rule.
Well, yeah, right? I don't know. These have been sitting in the fridge. They're a little soft. So that's those. And then here is, I swear to God, if I drop this stuff, I'm going to be super upset. There's my lunch. This is like a bunch of broccoli. And then there's some brown rice under here, which I like to add like coconut milk into to make it taste a little sweeter and tastier. And then this is like salmon with, what I do is I make like raspberry preserve. So I buy just a couple little raspberries, I crush the crap out of them, and then add a little bit of white vinegar and pour it over top. Super, super tasty. And then
After you're done cooking it, or do you do it while you're cooking it?
I pour it after it's all over. This is not going to
okay.
look very appetizing, actually. It's all kind of just like one kind of big mushy thing, but that's just because there's like a bunch of chicken sitting on top. But it's like chicken thigh meat with like carrots, whole like potatoes that have been like cubed up, that like skin on, red potatoes, and then cauliflower. I wanted to like, I've been eating a lot of green lately, and I was thinking about like the lesson from the other day where I was talking about how, you know, really what you want is just like different colors, you know, it's not always about just like green things. Like I'm always like making super, like I have had a lot of asparagus and a lot of broccoli and a lot of stuff like that lately. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go with some more like oranges and reds in my, and like even like cauliflower, like some whites in my diet. And cauliflower is like super, super healthy, even though it's not a green vegetable. So that's like, I did like roasted. I just basically cubed a bunch of potatoes, bunch of broccoli, and a bunch of carrots, threw them all into one sheet, threw it into the oven, and cooked it, and then put some chicken breast on top. And so when you think about it, right, it's like you're getting fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and protein sources, right? I'm basically trying to think of a little my plate in my head whenever I'm designing like a meal. And that's really the key to ensuring that you're getting plenty of nutrient density. Meanwhile, throughout the day, I didn't bring any of my snacks up, but like I will often do things like pieces of fruit or pieces of vegetables like baby carrots and things like that, and like apples and bananas. Usually with like, I like to do like a rotation of different like types of nuts. So I'll do like walnuts one week and almonds next week and macadamia nuts. Good God, I love macadamia nuts. And things like that throughout the week. And sometimes I'll even just make like little like you know, I use like almond butter, and you know, I'll have like a thing of like whole wheat, whole grain bagels or something, and I'll put it on that, and that'll be like a 400 calorie snack. So, you know, doesn't necessarily have any green in it, but it's full of like healthy fats and vitamins and minerals and things like that, because I'm choosing whole grain options, right? And that way, like if I did do like a big grain as a snack, I'll probably focus more on fruits and vegetables for like a meal later on. So I'm basically just creating as many little my plates throughout the day as I can. And that's ensuring nutrient density. So my plate guidance system was created by the FDA to replace the food pyramid by focusing on creating a template for a healthy plate full of nutrient-dense foods, right? And so that's really what we're looking at here. Now, obviously, you do want to make sure you're still reading the nutrition facts panel, right? We've already kind of talked about this in our nutrition class, but when we're looking at a nutrition facts panel, the first thing you always want to look at is your serving size. Teach your clients that this is the first stop they should always make. Because like, if you look at this food here, you might be like, oh, it's only got 250 calories in it. But if the serving size per container, like this is serving size is 1 cup. And that's like a serving size of food if there are 2 cups in, you know, this one like bowl, like let's say this is like a thing of ramen, and actually, who knows, actually it might even be. Oh, probably not, it's got trans fats in it, but let's say that this is like, you know, some pre-made microwavable like meal that you can have, right? Like the serving size is 1 cup, but like, how are you supposed to save it and eat the other half later, you know? So you're probably going to consume the whole thing, which means you're not getting 250 calories, you're getting 500, and you're getting 24 grams of fat, and you're getting 62 grams of carbs and 10 grams of protein. This is totally like a microwavable meal, guaranteed. Oh, I don't know, low protein, I don't know what this is. So the nutrition facts panel, really, really good resource. It shows you your serving. The most important things you want to pay attention to is the serving size, the servings per container. And then if you are focusing on weight loss, you're going to look at those calories per serving. That is hugely important, right? All of these things are per serving. These percentages here are honestly not that important unless you are adhering to a 2,000 calorie diet, in which case they're perfect. But if you're eating more or less than that, this is going to be pretty inaccurate. Energy density foods, right? What happens when you consume lots of energy dense foods? Well, large portions tend to be really difficult to adhere to a fitness program, right? They make it really, they often derail your weight loss because they often are generally very like energy dense and also not nutrient dense, and that often causes you to have like large portions, which generally result in things like blood sugar spiking, which causes blood sugar to bottom out later on. And then when that happens, that causes feelings of hunger, which causes you to overeat, and then you get another large portion, and the cycle repeats. So we generally want to focus again on, rather than consuming large volumes of food, lower volumes of food, you know, when we are trying to like adhere to like smaller weight loss programs, if you are eating energy dense food. But that principle completely flips and goes super in the positive if you start consuming nutrient dense foods. So nutrient dense food. So if people eat large volumes of food with lower energy density, right? So you're focusing more on nutrient density rather than energy density, you're going to feel much more satisfied and you're going to consume much less. So we looked at like the examples in that 200 calorie video, right? It shows like what 200 calories looks like. 200 calories of broccoli, you get to eat tons of food, you know? I mean, you got to eat a lot of it to get your 200 calories in, but that's the benefit of eating nutrient dense food. So generally when we're focusing on things, we want to focus on nutrient dense, and we'll put this as our final little bit here. So as a general rule of thumb, clients want to focus on nutrient dense options rather than energy dense options. And nutrient dense foods that are low in calories result in a larger volume of food consumed per day, resulting in higher levels of satisfaction. So we go back to the marshmallow test that we talked about earlier. If you are eating full plates of food that are low in calories, you're getting to consume food all day, and so you're not exhausting your willpower. So now it's easy for you to adhere to a diet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. All right, last little bit, supplementation.
Yeah.
So supplementation and weight loss. And very briefly talk about supplements here. So dietary supplements have 2 different functions. Number 1, they can provide nutrients in a nutrient restricted program. So there is like a small argument here. This gets a little uncomfortable for me because this is definitely focusing on like government recommendations, which the government loves the supplement industry. It makes a lot of money every year. And there is some evidence to suggest that like vitamins and minerals can be used to like fill in the gaps of like a nutritionally bankrupt program. So let's say you are on a calorie restricted diet, consuming a vitamin or mineral may fill in the gaps from a lack of vitamin C, you know? However, you will never hear me say it is actually a replacement for healthy. It is there to supplement. So vitamin and mineral supplements, I'm gonna put may, fill in any gaps that occur due to severe calorie restriction. However, it should be noted that vitamin and mineral supplements will never be a replacement for whole food, ever. I don't think anybody would, I don't believe a vitamin company would be comfortable saying that. Actually, that's probably not true. It would make them money. What's up, Irene? Question.
Would vitamin B12 be an exception?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, this is a hotly debated. I was hoping actually to kind of avoid this question. So yeah, B12. A lot of people are B12 deficient in general, and B12 is often found in animal products, animal proteins in particular. So when you are on like vegan diets, for instance, it's very, very difficult for you to get enough vitamin B12 in your diet. So a lot of times you will get that through supplementation. Is it as healthy? Theoretically. That's where like we start to talk, we start to like see, this is one of the reasons why like I'm not a huge proponent of vegan diets. I definitely am not saying they are unhealthy. But like this is one of the things that like, this is one of the reasons that holds me back from like a vegan lifestyle. However, like that breakfast sausage that you saw in here, that's meatless breakfast sausage because they sell them at Trader Joe's and they are delicious. I tried them out of curiosity one day and I was like, these are way better than the other ones.
Good to know.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
I'm not like a super proponent of veganism personally, although that doesn't mean that I'm saying it's unhealthy. But like replacing some of your meats here and there with like vegetarian options, like I don't think that's unhealthy either. And I think that that's something that's both good for the world and often good for you because these are, high in protein but low in cholesterols and have a lot of really positive effects. A lot of people are super afraid of like soy products because of like they have what are called phytoestrogens in them. For the record, like the amount of those that you would need to actually raise your estrogen levels is astronomically high. They have done studies where, yes, consuming soy products resulted in elevated like estrogen levels in like mice. But the thing is, they were injecting those mice with the equivalent of consuming like, I think it was like 13 gallons of soy milk per day.
Whoa.
That's a lot. Like,
Yeah.
if you're a guy who's afraid of like raising your estrogen levels, soy milk is nothing to be afraid of. And I'll say that.
So what do you think, like for me, what I do and my wife does, we juice every day. I don't eat as many like we still have vegetables like almost with every meal, but like I don't eat a ton of them, but I drink a lot of them.
Yeah, I think that means you're probably getting plenty of vitamins and minerals. I would be cautious. I would make sure that you're getting your fiber in because one of the nutrients that we talk about that isn't necessarily a micronutrient, but is a nutrient is fiber. And that's something that you lose a lot when you do juicing, unless you're using, what are they called? A triturating juicer, the one that puts all the fiber back in afterwards. Those are like crazy expensive, but that's the one that like it goes through and then like rejuices it afterwards, adding it a lot of like pulp back in. That can be a good way to get your fiber back. But yeah, I'd say like that's a great way to get your vitamins and minerals in. I have nothing against like juicing, but juices, like let's say like the juice from 3 apples, right, is going to spike your blood sugar a lot more intensely than consuming 3 apples because of the lack of fiber. So to say that it's healthier or like a replacement, I don't think that's like the way we should frame it. But if you're using that as like a supplementation for, because you're just like, look, I gotta eat a lot of calories every day, and if I'm filling up my plate full of broccoli, I'm just never gonna have time to do anything else. Spend all my day eating. Like I run into that problem all the time. I think that like that's a good way that you can totally supplement as long as you're still getting plenty of fiber.
Okay. Yeah, because I do a lot of like veggies, and then I put like 1 apple and 1 orange.
Yeah,
But, like,
yeah. I would say, I mean,
everything else is green.
A lot of that pulp is getting spit out of there. But if you're getting it from like whole grain sources and things like that, as long as you're getting your 30 grams of fiber in per day, you're still hitting normal ranges. It's pretty healthy.
Okay.
And that's a big one, by the way. Like, make sure, like Frankie, just like guy to guy, get that fiber, man. Like, we don't want that colon cancer.
Yeah.
So when it comes to supplementation, one thing that we do know, and this is technically true, the lower the diet is in your calories, the greater there is a probability that you will be lacking in some nutrients, right? Just like I talked about earlier. This is why I don't like hyper calorically restricted diets. Now, there are also some alleged supplements that result in weight loss by diminishing hunger or increasing metabolic rate. These are in the form of like what we call thermogenic fat burners. They do increase your metabolic rate. They are packed full of caffeine, which is a very anabolic substance. And so like that is gonna like amp you up, and you're gonna end up like burning a lot of extra energy all day because you're just like moving around, right? Cool, there's your thermogenic fat burner. It increased your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It increased your NEAT, right? Which is another tip that we're gonna be talking about when it comes to weight loss, and we look at like strategies for weight loss in this course, right? We're gonna look at like what strategies are most effective. We know that like eating nutrient dense options is a great way to increase the effectiveness of the diet. How to increase the effectiveness of an overall weight loss program? Get your client up and moving as well. Keep your client on their feet during your session rather than picking exercises that involve sitting, because sitting burns less calories. Sitting burns more calories than lying. So lying should be last priority. A bench press should be your last priority, and a cable chest press should be a little bit higher up the list because you're in a standing position. Both are great. Love both exercises, but if I'm focused on calorie burn, or if I'm building chest strength, I'm going to go bench press. If I'm focusing on caloric burn, I'm going to go standing cable chest press, right? Love them both. But these are like the tips and tricks we're going to get into for the rest of this course, right? The other common reason that people pursue supplements is because, holy crap, they are marketed. Marketing, back in 2006, the weight loss industry was making $55.4 billion. And that reached $68.7 billion by 2010. Let's see here. How much money does the supplement industry make a year? In 2016, $122 billion. So that is double the amount of money in just 10 years. Cool. More people seeking, weight loss, because we are getting unhealthier as time goes on. But rather than doing it through healthy options like juices or whole foods or exercise, we're seeking out the magic bullet, the silver bullet, right? I talk about this all the time. I just had this conversation with my roommates last night, but I think like one of the things that is just super brand human is just like classic human being brain, is like we are constantly living in a world where we are obsessed with a one answer solution. We love silver bullets, right? Lord of the Rings, you take the ring, like, Gimli takes an axe to that ring, can't cut it in half. Nope, the one thing that works, you gotta throw it in the original like volcano. That's the one thing that'll happen. Okay, fine, you know. Aladdin, you got the one lamp. That's the one thing that'll solve your life's problems. The one thing that'll kill a werewolf, silver bullet. You drop a werewolf out of an airplane traveling 300 miles an hour, nope, it's fine. You dip it into a volcano and pour it to ashes, no, it's a werewolf, it's fine, right? The only thing that kills a werewolf is a silver bullet. We've got so much fiction, we've got so much media that says one thing works, that like the belief that, you know, we have to engage in 20 different aspects of hard work. You know, we have to address our diet, our habits, our exercise, our sleep patterns, our hydration. The fact that like that's the actual answer is just so difficult for people to swallow and difficult for people to believe. But I read that like I could just go on the keto diet and that'd be the one thing that solves all my problems. You're missing the, like a lot, that is missing the point of like what a healthy lifestyle is, right? So research is going to continue to demonstrate the efficacy of certain vitamins and minerals. We have, you know, there's a reason this industry does get to still exist. It is still, you know, quite popular, and certain supplements have been shown to be present. But however, at present, supplements replacing dietary food, that there's insufficient evidence to suggest that that works. Replacing your meals with a vitamin supplement, it's not the way to go. And that's about all we talk about supplements in the core. We will talk more about them in Capstone. You'll get into supplementation much more, and you'll look at different parts of the industry. But it's always, I know it's kind of frustrating because like a lot of people do want to talk about like, what about beta alanine? I heard beta alanine is really good at raising testosterone. Or I heard that, you know, taking glucosamine and chondroitin is really good for my joints. Or I need to take an iron supplement because I have anemia. You know, for the most part, guys, here's my recommendations on supplements that have been proven effective. Caffeine, in every study they've ever done, has always been proven to increase athletic performance. And fat burning, because again, it does result in you having energy, right? Creatine, very, very effective at enhancing strength because it does create more creatine kinase, so you can produce ATP more effectively. Although creatine does not do much for you if you are engaging in exercise greater than like 15, 30 seconds, right? You want to keep it, you know, high intensity exercise. And whey protein. Whey protein is just a really great example of getting, you know, a complete protein that has all of your amino acids. And if you are using it to supplement because you have a low protein diet, and that's in making sure that you're getting enough protein in your diet every day, whey protein has been time and time again proven to be the most effective. I like casein. I like vegan options as well. But there's something special, like the amino acid profile of whey has just always been shown to be the most effective. Those are the 3 supplements that you will hear me say have pretty much been proven to work. We could talk more about other supplements, but honestly, those are the 3 that I put my name behind.
So creatine like helps produce ATP faster when your body's under
high intensity. It also drives more water into your muscles, which creates a higher inflammatory response, which if you are, so you've got these special cells called cytokines, which are what repair your muscle when they're damaged. And they, you know, if you are inflating your muscles with all this extra like water, there is like a reason for your body to go, oh, I can make those cells bigger. Like I can, you know, repair those and make, like we have the capacity to survive at that size. So there's also like a growth response associated with creatine.
Yeah, because I always thought that like it was just high in water retention. But
yeah, and that's the thing, you will lose like weight. The minute you go off creatine, your body weight will drop like that. Like I gained like last cycle of creatine I did, I gained like 10 pounds in a week. It was crazy. Like my weight was like whoop. And then immediately like when I like went off of it and like ended like my cycle of it, it just like dropped right back down. It was like, oh yeah, I can see my abs again. It's like, missed you. What's up, Irene? Oh, Irene, do you have a question?
Whey protein.
Oh shoot.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, the whey protein and creatine, does it like, would you take that before you exercise or after? And is it kind of filling? Does it hold you over?
I think, whey protein. I would take it after, just because it's a great time. Like, you've got this like big uptake, you're in a rest and digest mode.
Oh, right.
However, if you there is plenty of, like, they've done studies where they preloaded it as well. And if you have like a good protein source beforehand as well, your need for protein after kind of diminishes. But generally, universally accepted guidance is to take it after. Creatine is also often taken after in a lot of versions. There's a couple different like methods for taking creatine. Some people will do like a loading method where you'll take like 20 grams a day, which is a lot, for your first week, and that'll elevate your levels, and then you'll go to like 5 grams a day. Some people will tell you to take 2.5 grams before and 2.5 grams after. Some people will just tell you to restore your creatine so you have enough for tomorrow's workout by taking 5 grams after. There's a lot of different theories on how to best take creatine. I don't think, and this is where I am a little bit of an amateur, so don't take this as like black and white info, but I don't think any of them have been proven to be more effective than the others. I think just getting it in is what's important. Me personally, I take it after. I just pour it in with my protein shake, and that way I don't have to taste it, because it's bleh. It's like literally like chalk. It's like a tasteless powder.
And that's you usually do that before you eat, Brad? Like, you take your protein shake before you eat?
No, I'll take it. So I'll like work out. So I'll wake up in the morning, and usually have like some water, and I will usually have like a morning coffee, and then go work out, and then come back, and take my protein shake. Then I make like another morning coffee, and then I do my freaking phone call. He said, still adjusting to the world that we live in. And then a couple hours later, I'll have like my first breakfast. And there is like, the reason I do it that way is just because there is some minor evidence to suggest that, like, I just like keeping my stomach empty for a couple hours in the morning. I don't do that I'm not comfortable, like, saying that's like the best thing in the world to do. It's what works really well for me, because I'm not like a high hunger person.
I'm with you on that, working out on empty stomach.
Yeah, I'm able to do that fairly effectively, but like having like the morning coffee, and like when I say morning coffee, I mean morning latte. It has plenty of, like, it's like a 500 calorie coffee. It's got cream in it and sugar and all kinds of stuff.
Isn't fasting, like working out, like fasting, like shown to make you lose more fat anyway?
They have done some studies on that. I think that there have been studies that have shown that. But at the same time, I think that they've debunked that in some other ways.
Okay.
So, if it works for you, then I say go for it. You know what I mean? But like, that's another one where it's like, yeah, it happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen. But like, they've even done like, you always hear people say like, the general message we should say is that you can't spot lose. But they've done some interesting, like, there was a really interesting study where they were trying to find if you could find a way to spot lose and like specifically target fat loss. And what they found is if you do cardio using the muscles, like if you primarily focus on aerobic metabolism in the areas where you're trying to lose fat, you actually can burn fat from that area, because that's where you're getting your calories from. It's picking like the fat tissue nearby. And so like they did different forms of cardio, like on a bike, which was like pure legs, on like battle ropes, which was like pure arms. And there was some evidence to suggest that like, hey, we actually found a way to spot lose. But they had to do like a biopsy to do it. Like they were literally like cutting out tissue to measure it. That's one experiment. So it's like, yeah, it happened, but are we comfortable saying that you can, lose belly fat by doing like cardio crunches? Ooh.
Yeah.
So I get a little cagey answering things like that.
Yeah.
Like, Is it possible that like, you know, doing like cardio on a fasted stomach results in more fat loss? They've seen it. They saw it and they've studied it. You're not going to hear me say it didn't happen, but as a rule, I'm not quite comfortable. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That's about all I got for you for today. Let's go ahead and hit
All right.
that. And yeah, I'll end the recording. See all y'all tomorrow.